This composition started with a purchase from the website Temu. I saw this for $2.50 and I thought, hey, that looks like fun. So I bought it, and when it arrived, I expected it to be about 3 inches tall, but it was very, very tiny. Here it is next to a quarter. It's just a really, really little tiny vessel. They call it a split cup for paint pouring. And I just put literal drops of paint into it and then sat and waited, and I really didn't see much happen. You can see it here in real time. And I poked around. I thought maybe there wasn't any way for it to go down the hole, but the hole was just so tiny. So I started to go ahead and just put drops into the little vessel, and I eventually put this on time lapse. What you see in 9 seconds is how long it took for 15 minutes of paint to move through it. But I was determined to try to make this work, so I just kept filling it up, leaving the camera on time lapse, and then coming back about 15 minutes later. So I finally gave up on making any sort of big flower with it, but it seemed like it worked nicely to make these little pom-pom flowers. And so I thought I would just practice, since I had already mixed the paint, and make different flowers. With some of them I used more pink or more purple, less black. I felt like the black was really overtaking the flowers. And in my mind, this was just going to be a practice, and maybe I could figure out how to best utilize this little itty bitty split cup. But you can see it here in real time. You almost cannot see the paint moving in real time. So here are some of my favorite little pom-pom flowers. And once I had filled the entire canvas full of them, there is no silicone. All those little cells are just from the nature of the paint. I filled up this canvas and I let it dry, and I thought, maybe I'll just put this to the side and I'll figure out how to incorporate flowers on another composition. But once the canvas had dried, I thought, well, maybe there is something to do here. And so I decided I was going to turn these little flowers into kind of like water droplets. So the first thing I did was I got my Posca pen and I just loosely circled around the flowers. And then I took a brush with some water to just kind of soften that line, and also to add a little bit of dimension. If you're familiar with the channel Me Painting, she does this really well with water droplets. So I just started going around very loosely, circling each of the flowers and then softening with water. And I knew that I was going to paint around each of the droplets in a dark color, so it was okay if I fudged a little bit and I went outside of the lines. And so I didn't use any sort of circle guide. I wanted these to just kind of be random shaped droplets. They didn't need to be perfect circles. And as I was working on them, they started to remind me, or at least I started to call them little thought bubbles, because it kind of started to remind me of the look of neurons. And so as I was painting this, in my mind, I was painting little thought bubbles like deep inside someone's brain. So here I am again softening the Posca paint lines. Posca paint pens, if you don't know, they're acrylic markers, and so they work just like, acrylic paint, and they're very easy to add a little bit of water and soften and make it more like a watercolor effect than such a solid line. So I did that to all of the bubbles, and it was kind of meditative. If you're looking for some way to incorporate a little bit of art therapy into your day, this is the sort of repetitive thing that really kind of puts you in a meditative state. And then I just picked a color to start to fill in around those bubbles. And at first I thought that I really wanted it to be dark, like a gray or a black, and so I started with this iridescent graphite. but there was so much black in with the little bubbles mixed in with the pink and the purple that it was just a little bit overwhelming. So even as I was halfway done, I thought, this needs purple. I need another color to really offset those colors in the bubbles. And I love this purple from Liquitex. It's a dioxazine purple. So I just went around all of those little bubbles, as you can see here. And then once they were finished, I thought that maybe I needed a little bit of that purple reflected into the bubbles. So I just used the same color and watered it down and just went in there and put a little bit of that purple on top and then a little bit of white on the bottom to give it a little bit of a bubble effect. And again, if you're familiar with me painting, she is like the bubble expert. I could never do as well as she does, but a lot of the techniques that I've learned over the years have been from little things that I've seen in her paintings. So this is one of the things that she does when she is doing bubbles. Then once I had gone ahead and put some of the white on the bottom for highlight, then I went in with a white Posca pen and just put some of those little details. And then here's the magic. This is Mixtion glue. And I circled around each bubble with this glue. And you can see that it's got that really long applicator tip. And this glue is a kind of a three-dimensional glue. Like it stays, it doesn't dry flat. And you use it with a special kind of gold leafing. And so I thought it could be cool to take my little thought bubbles and make like little neuron connections between them that I could later on put gold. So here it is once I had everything mapped out with and there's the foil. That's what goes with that special kind of Mixtion glue. After it has dried, you place it glossy side up onto the glue. It's so simple. I was really, really pleased. This is my first time using it. You rub it on there, and like I said, that glue is kind of three-dimensional, so I could feel it as I'm rubbing with my fingers. And when you actually pull off that sheet, you get this like mirror-like golden gilding everywhere that it touched glue. So I just kept going all around. I was surprised. I was ready to use several sheets, but I was able to use the same sheet. I actually really liked it better than using gold leaf because gold leaf is so delicate. It kind of falls apart in your hands. But this one, it just takes off the little bit that it needs, and you can see the sheet remains like a full sheet. It just keeps taking the gold off of that sheet. So then I got this high gloss varnish from Liquitex, which I love. I'm not a real big fan of resin, so I just put this into a little pin bottle right there because I wanted to make those bubbles glossy, like someone might do with resin, but because I'm just not a fan of the process of resin and the fumes and all that, I just decided to use this high gloss varnish. And I just piped it in, almost like I was frosting a cookie, just piping it in and making sure that there were no void spaces left and popping all the bubbles. I really like this particular varnish. I've used it on many of my paintings. If you do several coats, you get a really, really nice high gloss varnish. So I always have a couple of bottles of this on hand for my paintings whenever I want something to be shiny. Thanks for watching. You can always find me at SaritaLaRoche.com. Keep making a beautiful mess.